Howdy folks, Donnie once again, and welcome back. And this time I'd like to just go over some basic Linux command line usage, and we're going to look at some commands which you'll be using in real life and also that you'll need in order to pass whatever type of Linux certification you decide to go for. Now, you're probably saying, okay, why do we need to learn all these Linux commands from the command line? You know, we got a nice graphical desktop environment here, so why can't we just use the graphical utilities? Well, the thing is that when you go to apply for a job as an actual Linux systems administrator, you're going to find that your Linux servers most of the time are going to be running in just regular old text mode without any kind of a graphical interface. So it is very, very important that you know these commands. And even if you're just a home desktop user, these commands are going to come in handy anyway, because even on my desktop systems, I still use the command line a lot because to me, it just is faster and handier a lot of times than it is to pull up a graphical utility. So anyway, the first thing here we're going to look at is the command line itself. And the command prompt here has several parts. We have the username right there, and we see that we have that Donnie character logged in. Oh, hey, that's me. And then we have this little @ symbol, which separates the username from the machine host name. So in this case, our machine host name is Linux-class. The next thing we have is the location in the file system where we happen to be. When you see that little tilde there, that's just a shorthand way of saying that you're dealing with your own home directory. So in this case, it means that we are in our home directory. Okay, so on a Windows machine, you have that My Documents directory or Documents directory, depending upon the version of Windows you have, where each user is able to log in and store his or her own files. Well, in Linux, we have the same concept, except it's called the home directory. And we're going to look more at that aspect of the command prompt here in just a few moments. And then here, finally, we have a $, which signifies that I am logged in with a normal unprivileged user account. Now, if you ever see a # there, instead of that $, that will mean that you're logged in as the root user. But that's something we normally don't like to do. And we do have other ways, which we'll look at in future videos, of allowing you to have root privileges or administrative privileges, as they call it in Windows, but we're not going to get into that right now, okay? But just know for now, in our videos, you know, unless we absolutely have to go to the root command prompt, we're not going to do it, okay? So that's going to be a difference here that you'll see between my videos and a lot of other people's videos, okay? And that's just realistic because once you get into the real world of being a Linux administrator in an enterprise, especially if you are a junior administrator, there's a good possibility you won't even have the ability or the privileges to go to a root command prompt. So we are just going to stay here as a normal user. Okay, so rant over. Okay, I know I shouldn't be ranting already, but anyway, what we're going to do now is use the pwd command. Pwd stands for Print Working Directory. And what this does, it just shows us what directory we happen to be in currently. And you see that I am in the home Donnie directory. I should say the /home/Donnie directory, which is my own home directory. Okay? So we can do cd, and let's go into the etc directory. And we do pwd again, and we see that indeed we are in the etc directory. And of course we know that anyway because we have etc right there on the command prompt. And then we can go into a subdirectory which happens to be within the etc directory. So in order to show that, let's go into the SSH directory. Notice I did not put a slash in front of SSH this time because this directory is within the etc directory where we already happen to be. And you notice I have the command prompt change again. And if I do a pwd, you see that we are in the etc SSH directory. But the default setting for a command prompt only shows the lowest level directory of where we happen to be. So it does not show the entire long path. So those are the cd and the pwd commands. We can also do like this, do cd space like that, and we'll go up one level. And we can actually, if we were to go down really, really deep into a directory structure, let's say we went down like, 4 or 5 levels deep, and we wanted to get up to a particular spot in the directory, we could do like that for each level up that we want to go. But in reality, however, once you get so deep, it doesn't even pay to try to keep track of how many levels you need to go up to do that. So your best bet is just go into whatever directory you want to be in to begin with, and like that, and be done with it. Okay, it's a lot easier. And also, let's say, for example, right now I'm in the USR directory. Let's say that I wanted to go into the bin directory that's within the USR directory. Okay, there's where I am. But I wanted to go up one level and then switch into another subdirectory of USR. I can do it like this. Let's say I want to go into sbin instead. So what I'm doing there is I'm going back up one level and then going into the sbin directory, which is also within that USR directory. So, pretty easy so far, right? All right, here's another easy command. We're going to clear the screen. We're going to do that with clear. So if you're coming over from Windows, you might be used to typing CLS, but in Linux we type clear. And the last thing to show you about the cd command is that once you want to get back to your home directory, all you have to do is type cd and enter, and you're there. And we do have a history feature. We can just hit our up arrow key and get back to previous commands if we want to. All right, so that's it for pwd and cd. The next thing we want to look at is the ls command. If we do ls like that, it shows us a listing of the files and directories that we have within our current working directory. If we do ls-l, it gives us a long listing. It shows us our permissions settings, the number of hard links, who owns it, group ownership, the size, and time of date of last modification. If we do ls-a, that shows us the so-called hidden files. But the hidden files in Linux are not the same as hidden files in Windows. In Windows, if you need to see a hidden file, you need to go into your File Explorer and change some settings to be able to see them. But with Linux, all you have to do is do that ls-a command. And also with Linux, the only thing it means when you talk about a hidden file is that the file name or the directory name begins with a dot. And most of these hidden files and directories are going to be within the user's home directories. And they are generally going to have something to do with the configuration of that person's bash shell environment. Next up here, we're going to combine some option switches. We're going to do ls-la, and most of the time when you are using an option switch in Linux, it's going to be preceded with a dash. Not all of the time. That's one of those rules that has a lot of exceptions to it, but most of the time the option switch is going to be preceded by a dash, and most of the time you will be able to combine option switches with just a single dash. So if we do ls-la like that, that gives us a long detailed listing of all of our files, including the so-called hidden files. And next step, we are going to make a directory. Making a directory is very, very easy. Just do mkdir, like so, followed by whatever directory name that you want to create. And let's call it sumdir, like that. And of course, I'm making this within my own home directory, so I can just do this with normal user privileges. I don't have to do any special tricks to get root privileges or admin privileges, as you would have to do outside of your home directory. But anyway, we have that. So we can do that. And we can also do this. This will make it a little bit easier to see. We can do ls-ld like so. And that shows us the settings and values there for that directory that I just created. Now, if I were to do just ls-l sumdir, that would attempt to read the files that are within that directory. But since we don't have any files in that directory as yet, it's not showing anything. Also, another neat trick about mkdir with Linux is that we can do a -p, which will create multiple levels of subdirectories all at the same time. And so now we can do ls-ld level 1 like that. We go into there. We see that we have that level. And then we have that level. And for some reason I've been going up here. Don't know why. I think I made a typo there somehow. There we go. So there we go. We have all 4 levels of our subdirectories made in one single command. Now, you might not be doing that too often there from the command line, but another thing you got to keep in mind with these different commands I'm showing you is that later on in your career, you're going to learn how to perform shell scripting. You're going to write shell scripts, and this little trick here I just showed you with that -p option switch to make that whole level of nested directories is extremely handy when you need to write a shell script which will automate the installation of some sort of third-party software. So we got that. And the next thing here, we're going to create a file. We're going to use the touch utility for that. Now, the touch utility is actually used by programmers for other purposes, but for right now, we just want to use the touch utility to create a blank file so they can use the demo here on how to remove it and all that. And also, we can look at the settings for just a single file like that with our ls-l command. And then we want to remove this file. So we're going to use the rm utility for that, like so. And so now it is gone. We can also use rm in order to remove directories. But in order to do that, we need to use the -r option switch in order to make it recursive. So let's go ahead and remove this entire nest of directories that we created. And we see that it's gone. Now, that was very simple in this case because we did not have any files in that directory. Had we had files in that directory, you would want to put an F in there along with the R, because otherwise it's going to stop and ask you every time it encounters a file, and it's going to ask you if you really, really want to remove that file, and you have to keep hitting the yes key or the Y key in order to keep it going. Okay, next up, let's take a look at the CP command. Okay, we're going to use the CP command to do our copies. So if you know how to use the copy command on Windows, you pretty much know how to use CP in Linux, except that the copy command on Linux, or the CP command in Linux, has a few option switches, which you will not see in the Windows version. So let's go ahead and create our Donny file again. And we'll use CP. And actually, first let's take a look at the statistics on that. And you can see there, November 21st, 12:14 p.m. Now, if I were to do a CP and move this over into the CompTIA directory, and I'm going to have to wait here a minute before this will work. So, because right now it's still 12:14, so come on 12:15, come on 12:15, come on 12:15, there we go, 12:15. So let's go ahead and do that. And now we go into CompTIA. And we see now that the timestamp has changed. So there are going to be times when you won't want that timestamp to change on your copied files. So if that's the case, what you'll want to do instead is use CP-P, and we'll move this over into CompTIA again, and that will just cause it to overwrite that copy of the file that's already there. And we'll see now that by putting that -P option in there, we have made it so that the timestamp remains the same as the original copy of the file. So sometimes that's very handy. That's one that I use all of the time. And we can also copy entire directories. We can do CP, and let's go ahead and make another directory here first. So we can go ahead and copy with the -R option switch again to make it recursive. You can copy some dir into another dir. And oops, sorry, Windows flashback. Okay, so we can copy the some dir into another dir using that -R option switch. And again, if you wanted to keep the timestamp the same, you could have used the -P option switch in there as well. So you could have done like this. And that would have kept the timestamps on that directory and all of the files within that directory the same as the original. And next up, let's look at the MV command. MV stands for move. Now, we're going to use the MV command for two different purposes. We're going to use it to move files and directories. We're also going to use it to rename files or directories. So, very, very easy. We just do MV, and we can move our Donny file into another dir, like so. So easy enough, right? Now, if I wanted to, I can just rename that file by doing Donny file. Oh, it's not there anymore. Never mind. Let's go into another dir. There we go. So now we can rename that file. Let's say I want to rename it to awesome file. All I have to do is, instead of specifying another location for that file, I just specify another name for it. Okay, so now we have awesome file. And now let's go ahead here and get rid of that CompTIA directory that I moved in here, or that I copied in here rather. And now let's go ahead and move that CompTIA directory over there. Now, a difference between the mv command and the cp command is that the cp command requires you to use a -r option switch in order to copy an entire directory. The mv command does not require that -r option switch. The mv command is inherently recursive, so you can just do it like that and it will work fine. Also, if in doubt, we do have man pages for all of these different utilities where you can look at the different option switches. We have man ls, for example, which gives you a rundown on all the different options, and you can look at these and you can see what all these different options do for you. We also have info pages. We can do info ls, for example. And the info page, the main difference between info pages and man pages is that info pages tend to be a little bit more detailed, and also the info pages have these different hyperlinks. Just put your cursor on a line that has an asterisk in front of it, and that will take you to another page. And then in either case, just hit the Q key when you're done. And the man pages and info pages you will find in my other video about getting Linux help. So I would encourage you to watch that video as well. And that's really pretty much it for the basics of Linux command line usage. Remember, even if you're a desktop user, these commands can come in handy. But if you are a Linux administrator, or if you want to learn to become a Linux administrator, it is essential that you know how to use the Linux command line. And also, even though I used CentOS here for this particular video, for this particular demo, all of these commands I showed you work exactly the same across all Linux distros, and also across your BSD distros, your Unix distros, and even on the macOS command line. So these commands are, as I said, they're universal. You can use them pretty much any place in the Unix or Linux world. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. We will have more videos to come in the future, of course. So if you like the videos, be sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you the next time.